I unplugged the router to reset it. Standard procedure when the internet acts up. But when I crawled under my desk to reconnect the cables, I saw something that didn't belong there. A small black box, no bigger than a deck of cards, zip-tied to the underside of my desk. 2 thin wires running from it, one to my router, one to the power outlet. No blinking lights, no obvious markings. Just matte black plastic with a single pinhole on one side. I'm 68 years old. I spent 40 years as an electrical engineer before I retired. I know what I'm looking at. This wasn't some forgotten equipment from the cable company. This was a network tap. Someone had installed a device to monitor everything flowing through my home internet connection. Every email, every bank transaction, every video call with my grandkids. My hand froze on the cable. Don't touch it, I thought. Not yet. Whoever put this here doesn't know I found it. That's my only advantage right now. I slowly backed out from under the desk, reconnected the router without touching the black box, and sat down in my office chair. My heart was pounding. At 68, you don't expect your life to suddenly feel like a spy movie. You expect quiet evenings, crossword puzzles, maybe a bourbon on the porch. Not this. I pulled out my phone and took a picture of the device, careful not to use flash. Then I sat there, thinking, who would do this? And more importantly, why? The obvious suspects ran through my mind. Hackers? Identity thieves? But those kinds of criminals don't break into your house to install hardware. They phish you with fake emails. They exploit software vulnerabilities. Physical access is risky, time-consuming, and unnecessary in today's world. So who needed to be in my house to do this? The answer hit me like a punch to the gut, but I pushed it away. No, not possible. I went back through the last few weeks in my mind, trying to remember who'd been in my home office. 3 weeks ago, my son Marcus had stopped by. Said he wanted to check on me, make sure I was doing okay since his mother passed last year. We'd had coffee in the kitchen, talked about his work, his kids. Then he'd asked to use the bathroom. Said the one downstairs wasn't working. I'd told him to use the one upstairs, but when I went up later, I noticed he'd been in my office. The door was open. I'd asked him about it that evening over dinner. "Oh, sorry, Dad," he'd said. "I was looking for that photo album Mom wanted me to have. Thought it might be in your office." I'd accepted the explanation. Why wouldn't I? He's my son. But now, looking at that black box under my desk, I felt sick. I forced myself to stay calm. Don't jump to conclusions, I told myself. Investigate first. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's another explanation. I opened my laptop and started researching. Network taps, surveillance devices, home monitoring systems. I spent 3 hours reading forums, watching YouTube videos, learning about the technology. What I found wasn't reassuring. The device under my desk was likely a packet sniffer. It could intercept and log all data passing through my network. With the right software, someone could read my emails, capture my passwords, monitor my bank accounts. They could see everything I did online, every website, every document I worked on, every conversation. But here's what really chilled me. This wasn't amateur hour. Consumer-grade spy equipment is usually wireless, battery-powered, easy to detect. This was hardwired, professional. Whoever installed this knew what they were doing. I thought about calling the police. But what would I tell them? My son might have installed a network tap? Without proof, without even being certain it was him. I'd destroy my relationship with my only child. And if I was wrong, if there was some other explanation, I'd never forgive myself. No, I needed to be sure first. I needed evidence. I grabbed a notepad and started making a list. Who else had been in my house recently? My neighbor Bill had stopped by to drop off mail, but he'd stayed in the living room, never went upstairs. The plumber had been here to fix a leak, but I'd been with him the entire time. The cleaning service I hired after Margaret died, but they'd never been alone in my office either. Every path led back to Marcus. I sat back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. My son, the boy I'd taught to ride a bike. The kid who'd cried when we took him to his first day of school. The young man who'd called me for advice when he bought his first house. That Marcus? But people change. Money changes people. And I knew Marcus had been struggling financially. His wife had mentioned it last Christmas. Something about his business not doing well, maxing out credit cards, behind on the mortgage. I'd offered to help, but he'd waved me off, said he had it under control. What if he didn't have it under control? What if he was desperate? I'm not wealthy, but I'm comfortable. The house is paid off. I have a decent pension and some investments. Life insurance. Marcus is my sole beneficiary. He'd inherit everything when I die. The thought made my blood run cold. Was he monitoring me to wait for me to die, or to make sure I didn't change my will? Stop it, I told myself. You're spiraling. You don't know anything yet. But I couldn't stop. My engineer's brain started running scenarios, calculating probabilities. If Marcus installed this, he'd need to access the data remotely. That meant he'd need to log in to the device somehow. Most of these systems use cloud storage or send data to a remote server. I grabbed my laptop again and started checking my router logs. It took me an hour to figure out how to access them properly, but eventually I found what I was looking for. An unknown device on my network. IP address I didn't recognize. It was connecting to an external server every 6 hours, uploading data. I traced the server address. It led to a commercial surveillance software company. They sold monitoring solutions for businesses and, according to their website, concerned family members who wanted to keep elderly relatives safe. There it was, the justification, the excuse. He probably told himself he was protecting me, making sure I wasn't getting scammed, looking out for dear old Dad, who might be losing his marbles. Except I'm not losing anything. My mind is sharp. I manage my own finances. I don't need a babysitter, and I sure as hell don't need my son spying on me. Where are you watching this from? And what time is it there right now? I'm curious because this happened to me on a Tuesday afternoon, and I remember thinking how normal everything seemed outside my window. Kids playing in the street, birds singing, life going on, while my world was collapsing. I spent the next 2 days acting normal. I didn't touch the device. I didn't change my routine. But I did something Marcus wouldn't expect. I'm an engineer, remember? I know how to build things. I bought a cheap laptop from a pawn shop, paid cash. Then I set up a separate network in my garage using a mobile hotspot. That became my real computer. The one in my office, that became my stage. I started feeding Marcus exactly what I wanted him to see. I'd open my email and leave conversations visible on the screen. Conversations I typed myself using dummy accounts. Conversations about changing my will. About being disappointed in family members who didn't visit enough. About maybe selling the house and moving to a retirement community. Every few days, I'd add something new. I'd leave my banking website open, showing transfers to a charity. Not real transfers, just screenshots I'd doctored. I wanted to see if he'd react. He did. 3 days later, he called. Hey Dad, just checking in. Haven't heard from you in a while. I'm fine, Marcus. Just been busy with some paperwork. Paperwork? Everything okay? Oh, you know, estate planning stuff. Making sure everything's in order. Silence on the other end. Then, that's good, Dad. Important to have things organized. His voice was tight. Worried. He was watching. He knew. I felt nauseated. My own son, monitoring me like I was some kind of security risk. But I kept playing the game. I had to know how far this went. Was it just surveillance, or was there something more? I started researching elder financial abuse. The statistics were horrifying. Billions of dollars stolen from seniors every year, often by their own family members. Children who convinced parents to sign over power of attorney, then drained their accounts. Grandkids who manipulated grandparents into loans that would never be repaid. Relatives who isolated elderly family members, cutting them off from friends and other relatives who might notice something was wrong. Was that Marcus's plan? Monitor me until I made a mistake, showed some sign of decline, then swoop in with paperwork and concerned looks. Get me declared incompetent? Take control of my finances? The anger was building in my chest, but I forced it down. Anger makes you stupid. I needed to be smart. I decided to set a trap. A real one. Using my garage laptop, I contacted an estate attorney. Not my usual lawyer, Someone new. I explained the situation, and she was appalled but not surprised. Apparently, this kind of thing is more common than anyone wants to admit. She advised me to document everything and suggested I might want to move my assets into a trust. But that's not what I did. Instead, I created a completely fake financial profile. I opened a new checking account at a different bank with just a few $100s. Then, on my monitored computer, I started doing transfers. Fake transfers, all screenshots, showing me moving money into this new account. Thousands of dollars, tens of thousands, making it look like I was hiding money from someone. Then, I left a document open on my desktop. A letter to my lawyer, which I never actually sent, talking about how I was concerned about family members trying to take advantage of me, how I wanted to protect my assets, how I was considering cutting certain people out of my will. I waited to see what Marcus would do. It took 4 days. He showed up at my house unannounced, said he was in the neighborhood, wanted to grab lunch. We went to the diner downtown, the one we used to go to when he was a kid. He ordered the same thing he always did, burger and fries. I got a club sandwich. He was nervous. I could see it in the way he kept touching his water glass, not drinking, just moving it around on the table. "Dad," he finally said, "I've been thinking. You're here all alone in this big house. Mom's gone. It's a lot of upkeep. Have you ever thought about downsizing?" "Downsizing?" "Yeah, maybe a condo, or one of those nice senior communities. They have activities, people your age. You wouldn't have to worry about mowing the lawn or fixing things when they break." I took a bite of my sandwich, chewing slowly. "I like my house, Marcus. Your mother and I bought it 40 years ago. It's full of memories." "I know, Dad, I know. But memories don't need a 3-bedroom house. You could take what matters and, simplify your life. Plus, you'd free up some equity. You could travel, do things you never had time for." "Free up equity," I repeated. "For what?" "For you. To enjoy your retirement. You've worked hard all your life. You should be enjoying yourself, not stuck maintaining a house." I watched him carefully. His eyes kept darting to my face, trying to read me. "And what would I do with the money from selling the house?" "Whatever you want, Dad. Live a little, see the world. Maybe help out your grandkids with college." He paused. "Or, if you need help managing it, I could help. I've been learning about investments. I could make sure your money's working for you." There it was, the play. Get me to sell the house, then offer to manage the money. I'd bet everything I own that within 6 months, that money would start disappearing. A few thousand here for an emergency, a few thousand there for a great investment opportunity. Until one day I'd wake up and find out I had nothing. "That's very thoughtful of you, Marcus," I said, "but I'm doing fine managing my own finances. Always have." His jaw tightened, just for a second, but I saw it. "Sure, Dad, of course. I just meant if you ever need help, that's all." We finished lunch in uncomfortable silence. When we got back to my house, he lingered in the doorway. "Hey, can I use your bathroom real quick before I head out?" "Of course." He went upstairs. I waited in the living room, counting the seconds. He was up there for 7 minutes. 7 minutes for a bathroom break. When he came down, he looked relieved. "All good?" "Yeah, thanks, Dad." He hugged me goodbye. It felt hollow. After he left, I went straight to my office. The black box was still there under my desk. But when I checked my router logs later, I saw something new. He'd accessed the device remotely while he was here. Downloaded all the data from the past week. Everything I'd left for him to see. All my fake financial moves. All my staged concerns about family members taking advantage. He was escalating, and I needed to figure out what he was planning before it was too late. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the boy Marcus used to be. How he'd sit at the kitchen table doing homework while Margaret and I cooked dinner. How he'd run to me crying when he fell off his bike, and I'd patch up his scraped knee and tell him he was brave. How proud he'd been at his college graduation, hugging both of us and saying we were the best parents anyone could ask for. When did it change? When did I become a problem to be managed instead of a father to be loved? I thought about Margaret. She'd been sick for 2 years before she died. Cancer. We'd spent everything trying to fight it. Well, not everything. I had the house, my pension, the life insurance, but we'd burned through our savings. Experimental treatments that insurance wouldn't cover. Clinical trials out of state, flying in specialists. I'd have spent every penny I had if it meant one more day with her. Marcus had been supportive. He'd visited her in the hospital, brought the grandkids, sat with me during the long nights when the nurses said it was almost time. He'd cried at her funeral, gave a beautiful eulogy about what an amazing mother she'd been. Had he been calculating even then, thinking about his inheritance, wondering how much was left after the medical bills? God, I hoped not. I hoped I was wrong about all of this, but the evidence kept mounting. I needed to talk to someone I could trust. I thought about my brother, but he lives in Arizona, and we only talk a few times a year. My old colleagues from work were scattered across the country. Margaret's sister would just worry, and probably tell Marcus. Then I remembered Bill, my neighbor. We'd been friends for 20 years. He's a retired cop, sharp as ever, and he'd helped me plant my garden last spring. I trusted him. The next morning, I walked over to Bill's house and knocked on his door. When he answered, I said, "Bill, I need to tell you something, and I need you to just listen before you judge me for being paranoid." We sat on his back porch, and I told him everything. The device, the monitoring, Marcus's visit. The whole story spilled out of me like I'd been holding my breath for weeks. Bill didn't interrupt. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "Robert, you're not paranoid. You're being cautious. And from where I'm sitting, you have every right to be. So you don't think I'm crazy? Crazy? Hell no. I've seen this before. More times than I care to count. Family members stealing from elderly parents. It's one of the most underreported crimes in America because victims are ashamed to admit their own kids are robbing them." He leaned forward. "Here's what we're going to do. We're going to document everything. Every conversation with Marcus. Every time he accesses that device. We're going to build a case. Because if this goes where I think it's going, you're going to need evidence." Having Bill on my side changed everything. I wasn't alone anymore. We set up a system. I'd log every interaction with Marcus. Bill helped me install my own hidden camera in my office, a real one, positioned to catch anyone tampering with my computer. We were building a counter-surveillance operation. 2 weeks later, Marcus called again. This time he wanted to take me to dinner. "Somewhere nice," he said, "to celebrate his birthday." I'd completely forgotten his birthday was coming up. Some father I was, too focused on being spied on, to remember my own son's birthday. We went to an Italian place downtown. White tablecloths, candles, the works. Marcus ordered wine, expensive wine. He seemed relaxed, happy even. For a moment, I let myself hope that maybe I'd been wrong. Maybe this was just my son wanting to spend time with his old man. Then, halfway through the meal, he said, "Dad, I've been doing some thinking. About your situation." "My situation?" "Living alone, in that big house. I know you said you're managing fine, but I worry about you. We all do. Beth and the kids, we talk about it. What if something happened to you? What if you fell and couldn't reach the phone? What if you had a medical emergency?" "I'm 68, Marcus, not 98. I'm in good health." I know. But these things can happen suddenly. That's why I've been looking into some options. There's a really nice assisted living place, about 20 minutes from our house. They have independent living units. You'd have your own apartment, but there'd be people around, medical staff on call, activities, other people your age. Assisted living. He wanted to put me in assisted living. "Marcus, I'm not interested in assisted living. I'm completely independent. I don't need assistance." "Dad, please just look at the brochure." He pulled out a glossy folder from his bag. "They have a great facility. We could go tour it together." "I don't want to tour it. I want to stay in my home." His expression hardened. "Dad, you're being stubborn. I'm trying to help you here." "I don't need that kind of help." "Maybe you don't realize what you need. Maybe that's part of the problem." The words hung in the air between us. Part of the problem. He was planting seeds, suggesting I wasn't capable of making decisions, setting up a narrative that I was declining, that I needed someone to step in and take control. I felt the rage building again, but I kept my voice level. Marcus, I appreciate your concern, but I'm fine. I'm staying in my house. End of discussion. We finished dinner in tense silence. When he dropped me off, he didn't come in. Just waited in the driveway until I was inside, then drove off. I went straight to my office and checked the logs. Sure enough, he'd accessed the surveillance device earlier that day. He was checking on me before our dinner, probably reviewing my recent activity, looking for ammunition to support his assisted living pitch. I called Bill and told him what happened. He was silent for a moment, then said, "Robert, this is escalating faster than I thought. He's moving toward getting guardianship over you. Once he does that, he controls everything. Your finances, your property, your medical decisions, everything. How do I stop it? You prove you're competent, and you prove he's acting in bad faith. But here's the thing. The system is designed to protect vulnerable seniors, which means the burden of proof is on you to show you don't need protection. If Marcus gets a doctor to say you're experiencing cognitive decline, if he gets a lawyer to file the right paperwork, you could be in real trouble. Even though there's nothing wrong with me, even though I've seen it happen, someone files for emergency guardianship, claims the person is in immediate danger of being exploited or hurting themselves. Judge grants temporary guardianship pending a hearing. By the time you get your day in court, they've already taken control of your assets. It's a nightmare to undo. I felt like the walls were closing in. So what do? We go on offense. Stop being defensive. We expose what he's doing before he can make his move. Bill helped me formulate a plan. First, I'd document my own cognitive fitness. I went to my doctor, got a full neurological workup, cognitive tests, memory tests. Everything came back normal. My doctor gave me a letter stating I was of sound mind and fully capable of managing my own affairs. Next, I met with a new estate attorney. Not the one Marcus might know about, a completely different firm. I updated my will, specifically stating I was of sound mind and making these changes of my own free will. I also created a power of attorney document designating Bill as my agent if I ever became incapacitated. Not Marcus, Bill. Then came the hard part. I had to confront Marcus with the evidence, but I needed to do it in a way that protected me legally. Bill suggested I call a family meeting, include Marcus's wife, Beth, make it formal, have a witness present. So that's what I did. I invited them to my house on a Saturday afternoon. Beth seemed confused about why I wanted her there. Marcus looked nervous. Bill was there too, sitting quietly in the corner. I'd set up my laptop on the coffee table, connected to my TV screen. When everyone was settled, I started. Marcus, 3 weeks ago, you installed a network surveillance device under my desk. You've been monitoring my internet activity, reading my emails, tracking my financial transactions. For what purpose? I'm not entirely sure, but I have my suspicions. His face went white. Dad, I don't know what you're talking about. Don't lie to me. I pulled up the evidence on the TV screen, the device, the logs showing remote access, the connection to the surveillance software company. I know exactly what I'm talking about. And before you try to spin this as concern for my well-being, let me tell you what I think is really happening. I walked them through it. The assisted living pitch, the offers to help with my finances, the suggestions that I might not be capable of making my own decisions, the pattern of behavior that looked an awful lot like someone setting up to take control of an elderly parent's assets. Beth's face went from confused to horrified. Marcus, what is he talking about? What did you do? I was just trying to protect him. Dad, you've been acting strange, moving money around, talking about changing your will. I thought someone might be scamming you. I was trying to help. By spying on me? By monitoring everything I do without my knowledge or consent? That's not help, Marcus. That's control. You don't understand. You're alone. Mom's gone. I worry about you making bad decisions. The only bad decisions being made here are yours. I pulled out the documents from my estate attorney. I've updated my will. I've got a new power of attorney in place. And I've documented everything you've done. If you try to file for guardianship, if you try to claim I'm incompetent, I will fight you with everything I have. And I will win because I have proof that I'm of sound mind and proof that you've been acting in bad faith. Marcus stood up, his face red. You're making a mistake, Dad. You're pushing away the only family you have left. No, son. You made the mistake when you decided to treat me like a problem instead of a person. When you decided your inheritance was more important than our relationship. Beth was crying now. Marcus, how could you? This is your father. Stay out of this, Beth. No, I won't stay out of it. If this is true, if you've been spying on your own father, planning to put him in a home so you can what? Steal his money? That's disgusting. The argument escalated. Marcus stormed out. Beth stayed, apologizing over and over, saying she had no idea. I believed her. She's a good person. She's just married to someone who got lost along the way. After they left, Bill and I sat in silence for a long time. Finally, he said, You did the right thing. Then why does it feel so terrible? Because he's your son. No matter what he did, he's still your son. That doesn't go away. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. The next few weeks were quiet. Too quiet. Marcus didn't call, didn't visit. Beth would text occasionally, asking if I was okay. But she didn't push. I think she was dealing with her own fallout at home. Then, about a month after our confrontation, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. When I answered, a woman's voice said, Mr. Henshaw? This is Detective Morrison with the Financial Crimes Unit. I need to talk to you about a report we received regarding potential elder financial abuse. My heart stopped. I didn't file a report. I know. Someone else did. Your daughter-in-law, Beth Henshaw, she provided us with information about surveillance equipment installed in your home without your consent and allegations that your son may have been planning to exploit you financially. I'd like to come by and take your statement if you're willing. I looked at Bill, who was sitting across from me having coffee. I'd put her on speaker. He nodded. Yes, Detective, I'm willing to talk to you. She came by that afternoon with a partner. I walked them through everything. Showed them the device, which I'd left in place under my desk. Showed them the logs, the documentation Bill and I had compiled. They took photos, took notes, confiscated the surveillance equipment as evidence. Mr. Henshaw, Detective Morrison said, what your son did is illegal. Installing surveillance equipment without consent, even in a family member's home, is a crime. Depending on what we find on this device, he could be looking at charges. I don't want to press charges, I said quickly. He's my son. I just want him to stop. I understand. But sometimes these things are bigger than what one person wants. If there's evidence of planning financial exploitation, we have to investigate. It's our job to protect vulnerable adults. I'm not vulnerable, she smiled gently. No, sir. I can see that. But the law considers all seniors over 65 to be potentially vulnerable. It's how we justify getting involved. Don't worry. We'll be thorough but fair. After they left, I felt exhausted. Bill made me dinner, insisted I eat something. We didn't talk about Marcus. What was there to say? 3 days later, I got another call. This time it was Marcus. His voice was shaking. Dad, the police came to my office. They're investigating me. Beth said she reported me. They took my computer. Dad, I could lose my job over this. I could go to jail. I closed my eyes. Marcus, I told them I didn't want to press charges. But they're investigating anyway. They said it's criminal surveillance. Dad, please, you have to tell them to stop. Tell them it was a misunderstanding. Tell them I was just worried about you. Were you, Marcus? Were you just worried? Or were you planning something? Silence. Then quietly, I don't know anymore. I was so stressed about money. The business is failing. We're about to lose the house. I saw how much you had, and I thought maybe if I could help you manage it, maybe some of it could help us too. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I wasn't going to steal from you. I swear. But you were going to manipulate me. Convince me I needed help I didn't need. Take control. I was scared, Dad. I'm 43 years old and I'm failing. My business is failing. I can't provide for my family. And all I could think was that you're just sitting on all this money. and you're alone, and you don't need it all, and maybe I'd be better off in assisted living where you could manage my finances. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I wasn't thinking straight. I wanted to scream at him. I wanted to tell him how betrayed I felt, how hurt, how he'd taken my trust and thrown it away. But I didn't, because underneath all the anger, I could hear my son crying, and it broke my heart. Marcus, I can't make this investigation go away. Beth reported it, not me. The police have their procedures, but I'll give a statement saying I believe you're remorseful and that I don't want to see you prosecuted. What happens after that is up to them and the district attorney. Thank you, Dad. But Marcus, we're not okay. You understand that, right? This isn't something I can just forgive and forget. You crossed a line. You violated my privacy and my trust. It's going to take a long time to repair this, if it can be repaired at all. I know. I'll do whatever it takes. Start by being honest. With yourself, with Beth, with me. Figure out why you thought this was okay. Get help if you need it. Fix yourself before you try to fix us. Okay? I will. I promise. We hung up. I sat there for a long time, staring at nothing. Bill came over later and found me still sitting in the same spot. You okay? He asked. I don't know. Am I supposed to be? He sat down next to me. There's no handbook for this, Robert. Your kid betrayed you. That's about as bad as it gets. But you did the right thing. You protected yourself. You set boundaries. That's all you could do. It doesn't feel like enough. It never does. The investigation took 3 months. In the end, the district attorney decided not to press charges. Marcus had no prior record. Beth testified that he'd been under extreme financial stress and had made terrible decisions, but wasn't a threat to me, and I'd given a statement saying I believed he was genuinely remorseful. Instead, he had to do community service, attend counseling for financial stress and ethical decision-making, and agree to a restraining order that prohibited him from installing any surveillance or tracking devices on anyone, ever. They also flagged his name in the system, so if anything like this ever happened again, he'd face serious charges. Marcus and I haven't really reconciled. It's been 8 months since everything came out. We talk occasionally, brief phone calls. He asks how I'm doing. I give short answers. Beth and the kids visit sometimes. I make sure Marcus isn't with them. I'm not ready for that yet. Maybe someday, maybe not. The lesson I learned the hard way is this: trust, once broken, is nearly impossible to fully restore. I raised my son to be honest, to be trustworthy, to value family above all else. Somewhere along the way, those lessons got buried under desperation and entitlement. He convinced himself that his needs were more important than my autonomy, that his financial problems justified violating my privacy. The important thing I want people to understand is that elder abuse doesn't always look like stealing money or physical violence. Sometimes it looks like concern, like a loving child who's just worried about their aging parent, like helpful suggestions and offers to take things off your plate. But underneath, it can be about control, about positioning themselves to take over when you're supposedly not capable anymore. If you're over 60 and someone in your family is pushing too hard for you to make financial changes, to move somewhere new, to let them help manage things, pay attention to your instincts. Ask yourself, is this really about my well-being, or is this about something else? And if you're a younger person watching this, thinking about your own parents or grandparents, remember this: growing old doesn't make someone incompetent. It doesn't make them less of a person. They raised you. They managed their own lives long before you were born. Unless there's clear medical evidence of cognitive decline, they don't need you to take over. They need you to respect them. The worst part of all this isn't what Marcus did. It's knowing that he probably convinced himself he was doing the right thing, that he was protecting me. That's how these situations happen. People rationalize. They tell themselves comfortable lies until they believe them. I'm okay now. I really am. Bill checks on me. We play chess twice a week. Beth brings the grandkids by. My doctor confirmed again last month that I'm healthy, sharp, fully capable of living independently. I'm thinking about traveling next year. Maybe Alaska. Margaret always wanted to see Alaska. The house feels emptier than it used to. Not because Margaret's gone. I've gotten used to that grief. It's empty because my son isn't here. Because I can't trust him to be here. And that's a different kind of grief. The kind where the person is still alive but the relationship died anyway. Sometimes I wonder what I could have done differently. Should I have helped him more with his financial problems? Should I have seen the warning signs earlier? But I always come back to the same conclusion. What he did wasn't my fault. It was his choice. His mistake. His betrayal. I keep the documentation from the investigation in a safe deposit box. Just in case. I hope I never need it. I hope Marcus really has learned his lesson and is getting his life together. For his sake. For Beth's sake. For his kids' sake. But I'm not naive anymore. I know what people are capable of when they're desperate. Even people you love. Especially people you love, because they know exactly where you're vulnerable. One more thing I want to say before I end this. The detective told me that cases like mine are incredibly common and vastly underreported. Elderly people don't report their own children because of shame, fear, or love. They don't want to believe it's happening. They don't want to destroy their family. So, they suffer in silence until it's too late. If this story sounds familiar, if you see yourself in what I went through, please don't stay silent. Document everything. Tell someone you trust. Protect yourself because no one else will do it for you. And hoping the situation will resolve itself is how you end up penniless in a nursing home while your family fights over what's left. I'm 68 years old. I survived 40 years in the cutthroat world of corporate engineering. I buried the love of my life. I caught my own son trying to take advantage of me, and I stopped him. I'm still here, still independent, still fighting. And I'll keep fighting until the day I die, because that's what you have to do. You have to fight for yourself when no one else will. That's my story. It's not the one I wanted to tell. I wanted to tell stories about my grandkids, about my travels, about growing old gracefully. Instead, I'm telling you about betrayal and surveillance and legal battles. But maybe that's more important. Maybe someone needs to hear this. Maybe it'll save someone else from making my mistakes or from becoming a victim like I almost did. Take care of yourselves. Trust your instincts. And remember, getting older means you've survived everything life has thrown at you so far. That makes you stronger, not weaker. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise.